Hi, everyone. Welcome to our weekly office hours session. Today with me is our VP of Product, Jasper. Jasper, thanks for finding the time to join us. I'm going to answer one most popular question. People keep asking us if we record these, and the answer is yes. So if you registered for this event, you will receive a recording immediately afterwards. So you can rewatch it and you can share it with your team. And we're encouraging you to ask questions because this is a super informal session where we are here to show you some hands-on recommendations, tips, and tricks on how to make the most of Luzmo. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them in chat. I will be monitoring the chat during this 30-minute event. And Jasper, over to you. Please tell us a few words about what to expect. What are we going to discuss today?
Yeah, thanks, Lena. Thanks for the introduction. So for anyone new, I'm Jasper, VP of Product at Luzmo. And we're here today to talk a bit about the MCP that we launched, which is a special one because we built it purposely for embedded applications. So if you're building your own agent and you want to give it data analysis capabilities with help of Luzmo, you can use our MCP. If you're building your own MCP with all kinds of capabilities, maybe it can answer knowledge-based questions, do actual work for your users, and you want to give it data analysis capabilities, you can do that by adding our MCP into your MCP. If you see that your users also like to use tools like Claude Code to ask data questions, look at charts, maybe save these charts back into your own app. You can do that through our MCP. So there are a lot of applications, but again, we built this with in mind, how can we make something that gives your agents, your MCP, your AI projects a quick plugin option to add data capabilities in there. So my ideas here to answer questions, maybe discuss a few cases that you consider yourself and where you wonder, hey, might this be where the Luzmo's MCP is useful for our projects? And maybe to make it a little bit easier, I can kick it off, show some examples, and then I hope we can go into some discussion and questions. So let me.
And just really quickly, Jasper, before we hit the live demo, can you maybe go over the 101 of MCP first? What is an MCP? And then second, I know we discussed it at some previous sessions. We have agent skills, we have MCP, we have the option to access data via API. So what is the primary use case for MCP? When do you recommend to use it?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. And I think most are already familiar with what an MCP is, but just to cover the basics, a model context protocol is a way to connect to help your agents talk to APIs and potentially other tools. So it's a form to communicate and to plug in different capabilities into your own agents or LLMs. And it's being used in very different ways. And some common methods are, in our case, so you're working with Luzmo, some common methods are you want to build something with Luzmo. So you being our direct customer, you want to connect your data, build a dashboard on top of it, create some formulas on top of your data, for example. That would be one example where a lot of companies are using an MCP to make that possible through AI tools. We have something better for that. We have our Luzmo Agent Skills, which is a plugin, and that's a combination between skills and our MCP, which adds a lot of capabilities even on top of our MCP. So if you're wondering, hey, I'm already using Luzmo, actually, I like to do stuff with Luzmo from my favorite AI tool, whether that's Claude Code, Codex, anything else. Have a look at our agent skills. They will give you all the tools that you need to build quickly with Luzmo, so you can build something nice for your users and embed that later. And then secondly, an MCP is also used to give your own users access to data. And that's where our MCP comes in. So if you're building your own agent, like I said, and you want to include data capabilities in there, you can use our MCP. And we use the MCP there to make your agent talk to our agents and make it talk to our API. So that's where we distinguish a bit, working directly with Luzmo as being one of our direct customers, or building something that you can use customer facing for your users. That last part is where we focused our MCP around. And what makes it a bit different, Elena, to answer that part of the question, For this MCP, we really focused on how can you programmatically authenticate your user in the MCP. Of course, you want to make sure that if you're using our MCP customer facing, that the MCP has access to the right data and the right context related to your user. I see a question coming in that's very related to this, so I'll just go ahead and answer that one. What's the difference between using Luzmo API and MCP? It's a very good question. In the ideal world, they have perfect overlap. We are an API first company, so anything you can already do in Luzmo in the UI, you can also do through the API. So if you're working with an agent to build with Luzmo and you wanted to do something with Luzmo, what often works is you just point it to Luzmo's developer documentation, and even without the MCP, it's able to figure out how to do things. If you add our agent skills into that, so you're installing our agent skills into then we add some context on top of that API, some tips and tricks and what we sometimes see go wrong so that your agent is even more capable to work with our API. Like I said, a lot of companies use an MCP and API kind of interchangeable. In our case, so the Luzmo MCP, so to speak, we built it for that embedded purpose. And there's some other angles to it that I'll show. But in many cases, an API and an MCP, if you want to use one of those to build with a product like Luzmo through your own AI tool, there's very little difference. Of course, technically there's a difference, but there's very little difference because in many ways an MCP is just a communication layer to make your agent communicate with an API. And nowadays, most agents are smart enough to not even need that communication layer if they have direct access to the API. Pierre, I hope that answers your question. If the next question would be if it's so similar and most agents can already work with Luzmo's API, then why the MCP? Let me show a quick example of that. We often use, and now I'm going to share my screen. We often use this app, Sales Compass, as an example of an external product that implements Luzmo and how users could work with that. And naturally, Sales Compass also uses Luzmo IQ, which is a chat that answers data-related questions. So questions like who are my main competitors can be answered here in the UI of Sales Compass. This could be an agent that can answer more questions, and then you would include, for example, our MCP into this agent to give it those data capabilities. And now I'm jumping to another screen because what if Sales Compass would offer an MCP to its own users? And bear with me to jump here. So the Sales Compass users can actually access data with Sales Compass in a tool like Cloud Code. So what I'm showing here is my Cloud Code desktop app. And you already see that I've asked a question here. For the sake of this demo, let me ask another one, like split that by product, because I'm asking about my best sales reps, but I'm also selling different products. And what you already see here is that with help of the Luzmo MCP, not only is Cloud able to pull the right data and give me an answer, it also generates an interactive Luzmo chart. And I could even go as far as extending this so that I can save this chart back into the Sales Compass UI. But here you see one of the differences, because I'm now in a third-party app that, being the head of product of Sales Compass, I don't control the roadmap of Cloud. But these third-party apps, they also support MCP app. And MCP app is an extension of just bare bones MCP that allows to create visualizations inside third-party UI. So I can perfectly show Luzmo visualizations, and I could actually turn this into the right context, user access, even styling if I would want to make it match Sales Compass. And this is where it differs with doing something through the API, because if my MCP would just point this Cloud user, myself in this case, to the API, I wouldn't be able to generate really consistent interactive visualizations in the same way as I'm already seeing in Sales Compass. So where does MCP shines? When you use it embedded, and when you allow your users to use it in other third-party tools to interact with data, but you still want your own visualizations and your own interactivity shown in the UI. So I covered quite a lot there, and I see a thumbs up, Pierre. Pierre, touched upon a whole lot of different angles here, but thanks for the thumbs up. If there's anything else that you would like to know here, then please fire the next question. Otherwise, I'll share one more thing on that's different with API and MCP, and don't be afraid of some of the technical parts I'm going to share right now. But moving back to sharing my screen on some developer documentation. If you would look at our API, and again, everything you can do in the UI is in our API, which is perfect for agents because they can do a lot. But if you would look at a random part of our API, you will always see that to do a request to our API, you need to provide an access key and access token. Because of course, we need to know who is this user and is this user allowed to create data? Is this user allowed to do an action on our API? So you always have that authentication part. And that's the part that's a little bit tricky to solve if you're not a developer or working directly with Luzmo. You always need to have an API key and API token or an embed key and embed token readily available. When you implement our MCP, you can define that for your users. So our MCP allows different ways to authenticate the user so that you can already say, hey, this is Jasper. Jasper has access to these data sets and it can only view the data, not edit the data, for example, which gives the user a nice authentication flow, and it can even go through your own authentication flow. I'm going to try to show how that might look in our Sales Compass app here, and I have to jump between screens a little bit, so bear with me. Let's say I just connected the Sales Compass MCP, then I'll have to authenticate. So I'm going to try to do that again. So I'm just added the Sales Compass MCP as a user, but I still have to connect. In that case, how that usually would look like, again, jumping screens a little bit here, is that the Cloud app will open a new window where I see a native login screen. In this case, Sales Compass just lets you pick between the users because we don't really have passwords and user accounts authentication in the demo app. But I can choose here to log in as let's say Sarah. So when I log in as Sarah, I'm then directed back to the Cloud app, and I have to switch that screen again. Where you now see that I'm logged in to the MCP and the tools that I have available. So the nice thing about this is the Sales Compass MCP is actually an MCP server built by Sales Compass, but it includes the Luzmo MCP, and it can pass through that authentication of the login window that you just saw. It can pass through that authentication to the Luzmo MCP so that also the Luzmo MCP is set to Sarah, in this case, Sarah as user, with the right access to the right data. So now as a user, I don't have to bother with API keys and API tokens and generate that somewhere in settings or ask an organization owner or developer to generate an API key and log me in. So this is a very natural flow, the flow that people would expect, users would expect when they add an MCP. And we made it very easy with our MCP when you want to embed it in your own, that we can be just part of that login flow. And there's no hassle with API keys and API tokens that you would have if you would just use the API. Also, jumping a bit to the Q&A. If there are no more questions, there are a few things that I could still show, but I would love to know if there are particular use cases, particular questions that people had in mind. If I should show a bit more maybe about agent skills, if there's interest in that.
I think we can definitely maybe while we are waiting for folks to come up with questions. And I mean, in terms of questions, if you have experience using MCP, share it with us. If you've never tried setting one up, also let us know because I think Jasper can also answer some very detailed and nuanced questions about this. But yes, I think if you can say a few words about agent skills and the use cases for those as well, I think, Jasper, this will be helpful because I know some of our customers are not aware that they can use those with Luzmo as well.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yes, so agent skills, and I'll share something on the screen as well that shows a bit of context. So agent skills are our way to make it easier to build things with Luzmo for our direct customers. So agent skills are not an end user, not an embedded user focused product like our MCP is, but this is focused on people who want to build dashboards through AI and maybe not even through our UI, but through any UI like Claude, ChatGPT. If you want to make it easy for yourself to just tell Claude, hey, I need another Luzmo dashboard, build this for me. I need an authentication created with these characteristics. Create that for me. Configure a specific chart for me in code and add it to my project. Any of these things. If you want to do that purely through your own AI tools, then agent skills are specifically built for that. And it's a combination between skills, which are just instructions, our API, which already is very powerful and includes anything you can do with Luzmo, and our MCP. But where our MCP only includes the tools that are most powerful end user facing, Luzmo agent skills include basically anything in our product that you might want to do purely through AI. So what I'm showing here is if you would go to our website and search for agent skills or find agent skills, or probably Lena, we can share this link here directly in the chat. If you scroll to your agent or preferred way to use AI, from Cursor to Claude and all the popular options, you can read how to install it, and it's something you do once. So you install these agent skills once. And from that point on, in any conversation, if you ask it to do something, if you ask your agent to do something with Luzmo, build something with Luzmo, change something in Luzmo, it will go through our agent skills and see if we provide a clear instruction and path and APIs to do that.
And Jasper, thanks for the call out. I dropped the link that you're referring to in chat. And we also have another question from here. Just a step back, so you can create a dedicated MCP for specific business cases, if I understand well. Could you say that Luzmo MCP is the equivalent of a Luzmo IQ feature, same objective, but it can be embedded by the user in an AI environment of its own, Claude, Cursor, etc.?
Yeah, Pierre, that's a perfect summary. It's our MCP comes up most often in relation to Luzmo IQ. So if you want to offer Luzmo IQ to your users, and for anyone else listening in, Luzmo IQ is our data analyst that can answer data questions, like was just shown on the screen. If you want to offer that to your users, you have a couple of options. You can use our front-end component, which is by far the quickest route, but also apart from styling, it gives you less flexibility in how it looks. If you want maximum flexibility in build your own UI, use it within another agent maybe, but still make the implementation really quick and lightweight, MCP is the way to go because it exposes Luzmo IQ as a tool, plus a few helper tools like maybe generate just a chart without all the analysis, or have a view of the available data sets and available data so that your agent would know what question can be asked. So the Luzmo MCP is indeed one way to implement Luzmo IQ if you want to control your own UI or already have an agent and want to include this as a capability in your agent. And I think I can also show a quick example of that. They now need a minute here to quickly switch demos that are running to show something else.
Yeah, no worries. We're bearing with you. And while you're switching screens, it's a very intense demo today, but I think everyone appreciates that because lots of learning is happening. While Jasper is working on switching the environments, in case you have any questions, please drop them in the chat as well. We have some more time for the discussion. And I also encourage you to check out the link that we shared in the chat because you can take a look at the documentation. There is documentation on Luzmo skills and the MCP. So maybe as you're looking at it, you will have some more questions pop up. Please share them as well. Okay, we can see your screen now.
Yes. So this is something that we internally use to test our MCP sometimes. But what you're looking at here are two chat screens, and there are two different agents. One agent is built with OpenAI Agents SDK. The other agent is built with Claude Agent SDK. And those are two. There are definitely more, but those are two well-known ways to build an agent. And what is powerful of these SDKs is that you can connect MCPs into those SDKs basically by just providing a link to a hosted MCP. And by doing that, you give it all the capabilities of that MCP. So we see more and more of our customers now using one of those. There are definitely also others, but one of those SDKs to build their own agents and include many different capabilities into that agent, Luzmo being one of them. Here's an example. I included three MCP agents or three MCP servers with each agent. Of course, Luzmo's MCP, also Astro Docs and Cloudflare documentation. Those are two more technical products, but I included them because I can just easily add those MCP servers without an account and without authentication. So two agents, they both have access to the same MCP servers, and I'm going to demonstrate kind of how that looks and how easy that makes it to include something like Luzmo into your own agent. So this is just the agent answering. There's no MCP used yet, but you already see a little bit difference of personality here. So I can ask a question about data, and I know I have a tremendous amount of data sets connected here in this example, so I'm going to be a bit specific. What is sales over time in the 50,000 sales records data set? So I'm going to ask this question, and hopefully both agents will figure out, hey, this is a data question. In this case, I'm going to use Luzmo as the MCP that should answer this. And you see indeed here in my UI that both agents decide, let me hand off this question to the Luzmo MCP server. Luzmo will generate a reply and send that response. And then the agent can again interpret that response and decide to write an answer back to me or to take another action maybe and fire another question. So here you see that Claude is by far the fastest here and already provided me a chart, again, Luzmo chart, and summarized its own answer. See, in this case, OpenAI is a bit slower in receiving the result, but I'll wait for it. And if my next question would be something about documentation of Cloudflare, I'm pretty confident that the agent will figure out, okay, the next question is about Cloudflare. I also have an MCP for that, so I'm going to invoke another MCP. And the one thing I had to do here to include Luzmo is adding this line, a link to our hosted MCP server into that agent configuration, and make sure that my UI, when it's presented with a chart object, that my UI also renders that chart in a Luzmo component. So that's a really, really light way to embed Luzmo IQ, so to speak. But I can fully control my UI and I can even control the entire agent around it. So a lot of flexibility with very little time and effort on implementation.
Thanks for this demo. It was really fun to watch it in real time. And we have a few more minutes until the end of the session. So encouraging everyone to share their questions with us in chat. We also previously, during similar sessions, heard some of our customers ask if we can run a custom demo like that for your team to maybe tear down a specific use case that you want to implement using agent skills or MCP. So that's also possible if you have a use case in mind that you want to walk through live right now, also don't hesitate to share, because I think Jasper is the best person who's super knowledgeable about all of these capabilities and can pretty much answer any questions you may have. Let me check if we have any questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Doesn't seem like it. I think then if we don't have any more questions at the moment, we can wrap up this session. And again, please rewatch the recording, share it with your team. If you happen to have additional questions or you find it valuable for our team to run a more focused session on your specific use case, we're more than happy to do that. And thanks, Jasper. This was a super intense in a good way. Lots of learning, lots of show and tell session. Really enjoyed it. So thanks for joining us today. And you're muted. Sorry, we can't hear you.
I had no special remarks. I said thanks, Lena, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we will see you next Wednesday at our regular office hours. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.